welcome to By the Horns, a Bitcoin podcast about South Africa. The show is brought to you by Bitvice, Self-Custody Simplified, the best place to buy sats directly to your own self-custody in South Africa. So this last episode, it's been challenging to say the least. So Pleb Music and I started recording last week, but load shedding had other plans. He was cut off by load shedding about halfway through our interview, not quite, maybe 20 minutes in, and then I was cut off about 2 minutes after that. So we managed to reschedule, but then we picked up where we left off about 3 days later. But then, as fate would have it, on that day, I came down with COVID, so I wasn't sounding so great for the second half of the interview. And then I've been sick for the rest of last week, so I couldn't wrap up the last few edits I need to do to finish the episode until I was feeling myself again, which is today. So I must apologize for no episode last week. I wasn't feeling up to the task making a podcast while I had the Wuhan flu. Anyway, this last episode as Pleb was great. We spoke about how you can start your career in Bitcoin without having to be a dev or work in a technical capacity. We also got into how Bitcoin culture is kind of developing, what the roles that memes are playing, the development of a religion around Bitcoin, and how ESG is destroying our energy networks. Anyway, if you like this episode, like and subscribe to receive one just like at your inbox every week. And with that, onto the show. Pleb Music, making the sounds of the revolution. How you doing, man? Good to have you on the show.
Hey, Ricky. Good to be here. I'm doing great. How about you?
Very good, man. Very good. We're dodging rolling blackouts at the moment. For those who are not in South Africa, who don't know what we're talking about, that means the power gets turned off by the government for a few hours a day because they don't know how to produce enough. And Pleb is experiencing this for the first time. People can't see. There's a bit of Cape Town in the background there. But yeah, it's a novel experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the first time that I experience what central planning and some commies can fuck up with the energy grid. Because originally coming from Europe, we didn't have the problems yet. I mean, they're gonna come soon. But yeah, it's quite an adventure. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, Africa is not for pussies, eh? Like it's
No.
things break here, but it builds resilience, you know, and that's what it's kind of about. If you rely on the government too much, like it's going to end badly for you. And I think South Africans have realized that way more before other countries have, because our government is particularly useless. And I think we're like 20 years ahead of the curve of terrible governments, and other countries are kind of moving into that phase now. So I think we're lucky, actually.
Yeah.
We got it early.
I hope you're early enough to build those kind of parallel structures and be self-sovereign. I mean, since the power outages are happening, I kind of wrote with a couple of other plebs, and you also had me like, you gotta set up your own power structure or switching to solar or whatever works, you know, just because you are basically fucked by the government. And yeah, I mean, it's seriously, it's weird because it happened yesterday the first time, and it's the first thing you see that you're powerless if something like this happens. If you never experienced something like this, you know, okay, shit, I need to change something with my setup at least, because if everything is down, even my mobile phone didn't have any connection. That's not a good way to live your life, right? So
yeah, and that's the most annoying part, right? It's not just your lights don't work and your fridge is off. It's that your internet doesn't work and your phone doesn't work, so you can't even like get like mobile internet. And that's the big thing. Like we all work in this new economy. We're working remotely and working digitally. But if you don't have power, man, like you can't earn. You get cut out. That's a big component. So part of being the sovereign individual, it's all great if you from Europe and you come down to Cape Town, you live here because it's way cheaper and you can earn euros, etc., or earn in Bitcoin and live a good life in Cape Town. But then the power goes out and you can't work. They fucked you.
Exactly.
So like having
you're just
own,
powerless.
Like, power. Yeah. But like I said, man, it's a good lesson in sovereignty, because people in South Africa now are like adjusting to this, because we've had it for more than 10 years already. And it comes in waves where like for a few months, sometimes it's fine. And then it comes back really badly. And now the biggest issue right now is that it's coming back, and the government is running diesel generators to keep the power on, or to hold back quite a lot of the load shedding. The problem is that diesel is going up by like 2 rand a liter next week, and the government's running out of diesel, and now there's an oil crunch, et cetera. So like it's like compounding, you know, like all of these like complex systems interacting with each other, and everything's breaking down. So
you got already price controls here, right?
Yeah, we
Okay.
got so in South
All right.
Africa, we've got a very communist government where they set the price of fuel centrally. So petrol and diesel, the price isn't set by like the person selling the petrol; it's set by the government. Diesel isn't.
Okay.
Diesel they can set their own price, but petrol is, which is kind of weird. I don't
Okay.
understand that. But yeah, so but basically,
Crazy.
long short, there's not enough electricity to go around, and they're bolstering that with diesel at the moment, diesel generation. But they're running out of diesel, and diesel is about to get a lot more expensive.
Okay.
Problems
Okay.
on the horizon. So
Okay.
stack solar panels, stack sats.
Yeah, stack sats. Stack sats and get your decentralization running. Because guys, this is why it's not happening. This is why it's not working. It's never gonna work. So decentralize yourself and build self-sovereign structures and become a self-sovereign Bitcoiner. I guess that's the goal here, right?
Yeah, stacking solar panels is the answer for the next few months, I reckon, because your sats aren't going to provide power for your house. It's going to be good when you want to buy a panel, but the problem is there's going to be a supply squeeze because everyone is going to be going after solar panels. So you want to get them before they run out, because if there's only 21 million Bitcoin, there's probably less than 21 million solar panels in South Africa.
Let's go.
But yeah, man, so last week I interviewed Brian Harrington and we were talking about home mining on solar. So it's quite a good segue, really, because if you overbuild your solar production at home, you can consume that surplus with Bitcoin mining. And especially if you're using things like Ant9, because the Ant9, the S9, I mean, is like, it doesn't consume a lot of power. I think it's like 1,300 watts. So, and you can underclock them, so you can tune them down to like meet your demand. So if you only have like 800 watts surplus, you can use that to mine with one unit. But everyone's going to have to get hands on, eh?
Yeah, for sure. Like this is also something that which changed my perspective completely. Like in Europe or with other plebs, I'm talking, solar is kind of useless because, of course, it should be the renewable energy, but there are a lot of problems with it, right? We all know of this. But here, it has the value proposition isn't renewable. It's just like having a self-sovereign energy source. It has nothing to do with, okay, I want clean energy. No, you want fucking energy. That's what you want. And that's why you get the solar panels. So,
and it's because it's accessible.
It's
like you can't put up a coal plant in your backyard, but you can put enough panels on your roof to power your house for relatively inexpensive. So that's the key here. It's like it's accessible and it's decentralized. And we know for industrial use, solar and wind are dog shit. They don't work very well because they're unreliable. But it's a different quantum, a different calculus when you're at home and you're trying to produce power for yourself at home. It's like a totally different thing.
For sure. I mean, even if the diesel shortage is coming, it's not even good to have a generator here, right? Because you're not going to find the diesel. I mean, tough times ahead. This is also something I'm wondering, like every day, is this the start of hyperinflation we're experiencing with nickel, what's happening with the energy shortages like all over the world? And it's kind of weird living through that times where all of us have been thinking about the last 2 to 3, 4 years. Everybody was speculating about, okay, how would it look like? But I don't know how you experience it, but for me, it's like, it feels like, okay, this is like now starting. We kicked the can down the road too long, and now we see all of this happening. All of what the fiat culture, the fiat food, everything kind of now grabs up, and everything is coming.
Yeah, man.
Slowly but surely into the direction of the hyperinflation. So I don't know.
Yeah, totally. So I think I first got exposed to like the fiat, the failures of the idea that the fiat system would fail probably in 2014, 2015. I started reading about this stuff. And that's when I got into Bitcoin and all of that. But I didn't imagine the collapse of the fiat system would look like this. I thought it was going to be like one morning we wake up and the banking system has collapsed, and like then it's like a whole new paradigm. I didn't imagine it was going to be like a 2-year process of like just everything, systems failing one after the other, and then the elites just like pushing it to break down the whole time. Like I didn't see that coming,
Yeah. And it's kind of weird to know what's happening, right? Because like I'm saying, once you understand Bitcoin, you understand the world, right? You have like this laser vision, how you would say, and you kind of understand everything. Like, because I think for me, it's like understanding the world based on incentives, and I think incentives are basically like the underlying rules which everything stacks upon. And once you understand that everything works on incentives and you kind of see through every action to understand one's incentive, you basically, that's the cheat code, you know. Once you understand this, it's a cheat code, and you understand the world. And as you say, it's kind of weird to see how this is unfolding, and like how it it seems to be intentional like this, or either they're like yeah. I don't want to go too much into that rabbit hole, but yeah.
Yeah. Look, once again, like, I'm glad I'm in South Africa, because the people here are aware that you can't rely on the government for anything. So there's no pretense that the government must save us. Like, everyone here knows that's never going to happen. In fact, they'd rather the government didn't get involved, because they'll just fuck it up and make it worse. So there's at least that aspect. We have like a resilient people already. And the other aspect is our winter isn't that bad, because if you're in Europe and you're going through hyperinflation, man, winter must be bad. You know, if you're living in like northern Germany and you're going through hyperinflation and winter comes around and you can't get any gas from Russia, not good.
It's as I said, like I'm also glad I'm finally here in South Africa. Although we started off with like the power shortages and everything, I think it's still it's a very big citadel which has its own problems, but at least people are a little bit more thoughtful, or let's say they think for themselves, whereas a lot of people in other countries, they just follow their official line, which is a little bit, as a Bitcoiner, I'm just like, what is wrong with you guys? Just think a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, man, it's interesting, and I think maybe it's because Europeans have had it, because they've had it for good for so long, you know, where things have just operated and worked, and people have taken it for granted. Whereas, you know, in the rest of the world, that's not the case really. But anyway, this is, like you say, this is a deep rabbit hole we can go into. Cape Town's a great place. We've got lots of sun, and we've got lots of meat, lots of cows running around. So, you know, it's a good place for steaks. Anyway, Cliff, the reason why I wanted to chat to you is, like, so your main thing you're doing is making music for Bitcoin and the music for the revolution. So do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so basically I'm like, my fiat job, or what I did in the fiat world, was basically producing music. So I started, I don't know, with 16 or something, I started downloading illegal softwares, right? So this was how I started getting into music. I was a musician, played guitar and in several bands. And at some point I just like started producing some music, and this was basically my passion. Okay, so starting at that age, I created my own artist project. I worked as a DJ, and I traveled the world also as a small DJ. I was like in several countries, and then at some point there was like the decision, okay, do I want to do this as a full-time job, or is this just a hobby? And I actually went for the full-time thing. So I went to university, studied music business, and then worked for pretty big labels like Warner Music and Universal Music. And I was like very, very deep in the fiat music industry. And I don't. At one point, I realized, okay, something is wrong here. I didn't quite know what it was that was wrong, but something with my deep underlying values that I'm living and working for didn't quite align with. And then basically, I don't know how, but I found this weird orange thing called Bitcoin, and it showed me how the world works basically. I tried to understand everything and read everything and listen to all of the podcasts. And then I was lurking, I don't know, I think two years on Twitter, and was following everybody, but I didn't create my own content, nothing. And then at some point I was like, okay, fuck the fiat world. I want to get out of there. Let's start by adopting what I can do good in the fiat world into the Bitcoin world. And that's when I started making meme songs, taking taking famous quotes of Michael Saylor or Greg Foss or whatever, and turning them into songs to kind of educate the newbies or just have some fun. And yeah, it opened me a lot of doors, and it was one of the the best decisions I ever made to just put on a meme song, which was bullshit about, I don't know, inflation or Max Kaiser. I don't even know what the first one was. But yeah, it's a crazy ride since then.
And it's wild how much Bitcoiners love this shit. You know, like the memes are so
Yes.
strong and they're such an integral part like of our culture. Did you know this
For
coming
sure.
in to like you're gonna tap into the memes, or were you just like this is still something you thought would
Nothing.
work?
Nothing. It's kind of funny because like I never was that much into memes before that. Of course, like I knew what memes were and I knew the big memes, but this like these songs kind of got me into this meme rabbit hole, which is very deep, which is crazy deep. And like now I'm basically friends with all the crazy meme anons, and we write in different chats. I actually met one like a month ago in real life, which was pretty cool. And yeah, but I think this is like the true power we have, like the memes, because what is a meme? Basically, it just condenses a very complex idea into one picture, which you might not understand fully, but it opens up the way for you to get into the deeper grasp and understand what it really is. Because like, for example, my favorite meme is from Knut Svanholm, the everything divided through 21 million, right? It's such a simple meme, but once you understand what it means, this is basically Bitcoin in just a couple of signs. That's it, you know. And it's so powerful to spread the message across the country and across normies. And also, it's just fun, you know. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, fuck you, Greg, by the way. And yeah.
It's like because memes are like an inside joke and an outside joke at the same time, you know. Because like if you know, then it's funny, but if you don't know, you kind of like this is like mildly amusing, you know. Yeah,
Yes.
but
Yes.
like the original memes are hieroglyphics, right? Like the way the Egyptians used to write, they like used to write in memes, which is it's
true.
crazy when you think about it. People think that like one hieroglyphic means like one word or whatever, and you're like, no, that actually is like it's a meme. It's taking a very complex idea and distilling it down into a picture that everyone can kind of wrap their head around and understand. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. And
it took us so long
like,
to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. And also the thing is, it seems easy, but memeing is super hard. Like once you try it, like for example, I'm not as good in normal memeing. I can do audio memeing and maybe some video memeing, but like graphic memeing, I'm shit compared to the big ones, you know. And because it's so hard, you really need to understand the concept to put it into a meme. So although there's a lot of shit posting happening, I think good memeing you need to be like a real pleb, like aligned with all the values to get the right memes out there.
Yeah. And you like audio memes, it's like that song, that Pump It Up song, you know, like whenever that comes on, if you're in a club or whatever and you hear that, like you can see all the Bitcoiners, they all like come out of the woodwork, you know. You can see who owns Bitcoin because they know that song. And everyone else is like,
it's so funny.
Why is this guy frothing out so much?
Yeah. It's so funny. Yeah. I don't know. It's just the Bitcoin community is such I would say still a small part of the world, but it's like it has so many insiders, and like you can basically just communicate with any pleb on the world about the same things, right? They would understand what you mean. They would understand the same concepts, which is quite wonderful in my opinion. It's like, although this is like just meme fun, like having fun on Twitter, this is in my opinion pretty huge. That like it's we let's see how this looks in 10 years, because I would say in 10 years it's going to evolve a lot. But I'm bullish on the space. I'm bullish on all of the chief meme officers and all of the jobs happening. So
man, and I think what we're seeing happening is like we're seeing the building of culture. Like over the last 13 years that Bitcoin has been in existence, like this is building a more and more complex culture. And the memeing and everything that moves around that is essentially, it's culture forming. And I take it even a step further. I think Bitcoin has transitioned from being like this idea to becoming a full-blown religion. And it's got its prophets and apostates, and it's got its its messiah and all. It's got the whole thing, of a religion. But what's that aside, we'll get onto that now. But like, how do you see the culture of Bitcoin like evolving and playing a role in like the projection of Bitcoin into the rest of the world? Because I think that's super powerful and very important, that we have to have this core that is culturally driven. Otherwise, we'll lose our way, like the shitcoiners have. Because I don't think shitcoiners have that much culture, to be honest.
I don't think they can meme at all. Like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know what's happening with them. But that's very interesting. That's again where we started, right? If you have the right values, everything you can like stack on top. And if you are building all of the culture on a compromised, let's call it blockchain, right? If you build upon this, even the memes are bad. It's kind of course, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's basically what's happening, right? We, all the plebs, all the meme lords, they kind of are aligned with this, as you say. I would also agree with you, it's a religion, but we're gonna get into this later. Like, in this fundamental nature truth which Bitcoin represents, right? And basically what the shitcoiners are trying is to represent or to do the same, but on another layer, being, I don't know, I don't want to name any shitcoin, but you can see they are not succeeding, right? Because the memes are shit. In every meme fight, in every Twitter fight, they are losing, right? It's all of them. They just want to make money. It's not about this fundamental understanding. Okay, this is gonna change the world. We have one opportunity, and this is Bitcoin, and we need to kind of press it forward. Although I'm also thinking we don't need mass adoption, and it's like whatever happens, Bitcoin's gonna be fine, and it already won. I think still, like, all the memes and stuff can like push it out further, and just create this culture which is based on truth. I think all like self-sovereignty, all of these things which are more and more important. And I think the question was, I think what memes or what, I think memes play a particular role in this, because this is the entry to this deeper understanding of Bitcoin, because it takes quite a while and a big understanding to understand. If we both talk about, okay, is Bitcoin religion, like normies or people who have no idea what it is, they would laugh and just get to the next podcast. But like, if we have memes kind of explaining it a little bit and nudging it here and there, this is maybe sparking some interest and getting them on their way, on their own way to the seeing the light, right? But I think without it can't. We wouldn't have hyper Bitcoinization, let's say it that way, without the culture. And I think also it's good that the culture is toxic, and it.
I think Pleb just got load chat. I think that's what just happened. I think his power just went out. Thanks, Eskom, running my podcast. All right, and we're back 3 days later. Load shedding fucked us. Sorry about that, guys. We both got load shed at the same time. Right as we're talking about Bitcoin maximalism being a good thing. So clearly some shitcoiners working at Eskom. Pleb, welcome back. And let's kick off where thank you. Let's kick off where we left off. We were talking about Bitcoin maximalism and your thoughts on it.
I just wanted to say that I think it's super important, like that there is a certain amount of toxicity in the community, because it kind of works as a filter, right? Because I think you can't get away with anything. You need to be held accountable for some stuff, and I think this toxic mentality is evolving out of this, because if you are, let's say, scamming people or talking bullshit or something, you got to stand with your words. And for some people, this is in today's world a little bit too much. And but for me, I would say this is like the perfect amount of toxicity, because I also experienced the flip side of it, which is like the pure love in the Bitcoin community. If you do something which provides value for others, or if you are at least within the right values as the other toxic maxis, they're gonna support you wherever you want and wherever you are in your journey, and like are like very, very helpful, helping you with setting up your Lightning node, setting up, or like even just building your own Twitter bubble or a community. For me as a creative, it was like very astonishing that like this toxic maximalists can show so much support and so much love. So yeah, I think it's a healthy filter system that we have, and I wouldn't change anything about it.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. So a lot of people in the Bitcoin community who've been on the receiving end of the toxic maximalists, they hate it. They think it's detracting from Bitcoin. But then the other side is saying, well, look, it's an immune system. And I think I could see both sides. I could see where people say it gets a bit hectic, and it chases away some people, which is true. It does definitely chase away some people. But by the same token, you know, there's a lot of scammers in the space. And in my view, like 90% of altcoins ultimately end up as scams, whether they were planned that way or not. They kind of end up as scams. So like, you need to have a community that is dogmatic about the rules that they follow, and they're like, there's no scamming here, like, which don't tolerate it at all. So from that sense, I think it's a pretty good thing. It's a great way to call out bullshit, and it kind of, everyone knows the rules, you know, with Bitcoin, because it's so limited in what it does. It's such a like clearly defined scope of like, it's trying to be world money. It's not trying to do anything else. That it's very easy for people to figure out what the rules are. And anyone who tries to deviate from those rules just gets the cyber hornets attack them. It might not always be that way, because eventually Bitcoin's going to get so big and so many people are going to be using it that toxicity won't kind of be viable anymore, because the community is going to be so large. But until we get there, I think it's a very important part of the system to maintain the course of where Bitcoin is going and not be distracted. You know, for like bigger blocks, for example, or anything like that. It's interesting. But it's also interesting that it developed organically, because when you and I probably first got into Bitcoin, you know, a couple of years ago, the toxicity didn't really exist. And I think the block wars kind of bred that toxicity. Because in 2017, it wasn't really there, but in the beginning of 2017, but by 2018, like, toxicity had started. So I think that everyone's got PTSD from the block wars, and that's probably what caused it. And it's only gotten stronger since then.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I mean, it's good that it got strong, in my opinion. Like, of course, some people can't handle it, but I'm always saying it's kind of, you know, Bitcoin represents the money, like the free market money, and also everything else is like in a free market. Whatever you do, whatever you post on Twitter, I mean, if you are recycling tweets, there are like big Bitcoiners who are recycling them and like don't put the effort in. It's like in the free market, you're gonna get shit for it, you know? And you gotta be tough enough if you want to recycle them to live with that feedback. I mean, there are still enough people who still do it because they don't give a fuck about it. But like, yeah, it's kind of, maybe it's not even a toxicity, but it's just like honesty, you know? Like of course, there's a lot of toxic cyber hornets and stuff, but also, as I said, this is like merged with just being honest about it. And like, where we began our podcast with, like, if you have these common values and you know this is the truth, everything that goes against it is like kind of an attack on yourself, your community. So you gotta defend it. And yeah, I mean, it's super healthy. I think it's also sometimes it's fun with the memes if you are not at the receiving end. I mean, yeah, sometimes it can get pretty brutal, and I think sometimes it's even a little bit too much. But I said it's just a self-correcting mechanism. You know, if it's too much, I guess people start realizing it and fighting kind of back. It's just a free market, and it's gonna be the way it is, and you gotta find your way through it. So yeah, and shitcoiners are not welcome. You know, if you're a shitcoiner, so yeah, get out of here.
You definitely see that pushback against the maximum, like really toxic guys. Like if you look at someone like a account like Stony, for example, like he's like uber toxic, and like I personally read his shit and I'm like, hey bro, you're like, it's a bit hectic, you know, like everyone's a fed, everything's a scam to a degree. I do believe that most things are scam, but not everyone's a fed, and some people need to be given the benefit of the doubt. So there is like a middle ground within the toxic maximalism space, but like you say, it's a free market. But at the end of the day, if you don't scam anyone, and you're not trying to scam anyone, and if your intentions are noble, you're probably not going to have any trouble, really.
Exactly. That's the thing I was trying to say. Like, if your intentions are the right ones and you have a misstep or something, right? I feel like the people understand, as long as your intentions are the right ones, even a misstep, like, I don't know, selling your coins on some shitcoin social media or something, if you stand for it and say, okay, this was a misstep, and you like say, okay, I tried it out, you are totally right. The community is going to be like forgiving you and welcoming you back. But like, there's, as you say, there's a middle ground. You got to be very, very cautious what to do. But I think that's just normal for life. I think in today's world, it's we had like very good times, and we created weak men. Let's put it in that way. And this is like present anywhere, like everywhere, basically, in like also in like the normies social media, the normies work and all of their let's get not too deep into it, but like I think it's a good counter to all that's happening in the normal world, like having back this kind of a little bit toxicity, which just gets you back to the truth. And for example, for me, it's like, because this toxicity exists, I'm kind of rethinking like twice what I'm posting and what kind of content I'm doing, because I know, okay, as I said, I'm gonna think what the free market will think about it. But yeah, it's, as I said, I think it's a good thing. It changed my life in a very good way, because I think I got way harder and that sounds probably very bad in English. But tougher, that's what I was searching
there you
for.
Go. It's like a decentralized accountability structure, really. It keeps people accountable, and like it's like a reputational attack that happens if you veer too far from the path. It's kind of in Game of Thrones, where there's that popular uprising by the Sparrows. I don't know if you read or watched the Game of Thrones series, but like,
no, I didn't. I'm sorry.
So
I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this, but no, I didn't.
There was, for those who've watched it, there was like this religious uprising of like the plebs, basically, who like wanted to overthrow the monarchy, and they were like these like religious, not quite extremists, but fundamentalists that rose up. And that's essentially like an analogy to what's happening in Bitcoin, because the toxic maximalism, the toxicity isn't coming from like prominent Bitcoiners. It's coming from the plebs. It's coming from like people who have no public facing persona, because they can say these things and they can be the enforcer. So it's like this swarm of, like Sailor puts it, the cyber hornets that will attack you. And you can't attack them back because they aren't prominent. It's not like Peter McCormack has got to filter what he says because he's got such a broad audience. Whereas, some person who's like Anon257 can say whatever the hell he wants, and be really toxic. So it's interesting. So the plebs are kind of what drive this, really, not the so-called thought leaders, because they can't really say they can't really be edgy about the thoughts.
Yeah, and like the interesting thing about it is like what like, we don't need the masses for Bitcoin, right? It's just like you need Bitcoin, but Bitcoin doesn't need you. So if you are ready to be included, or like to be part of this community, you are free to do so, right? And you're gonna be accepted as you are, and no one gives a shit who you are, and no one gives. If you are a dog or a fish on Twitter, if your takes are good, you're going to be rewarded for them. But it's not like, that's at least what I like about it. It's not like we are like, I think you call them missionaries, that we try to get them in. Okay, please pump my token or something. Bitcoin doesn't need it, because Bitcoin is in itself already perfect. this is just like the natural evolution that's going to happen. More and more people are going to understand it and so on. But like, I think Alex Svetsky put it that way, that basically we don't need the masses for hyper Bitcoinization. We just need the believers, which are a small percentage of like the masses who believe in it and will fight for it, whatever happens, you know. And that's exactly what you said. It's like the immune system that Bitcoin needed and will still need it for like the future, with all the energy and ESG funds and whatever is gonna come. So yeah.
Yes, ESG is an interesting one because I don't know if ESG is still going to exist after what's just been happening now with the energy crisis, right? Because all of a sudden, South Africa is a major coal exporter. All of a sudden, our coal exports have gone through the roof because Europe can't export, but they can't bring in enough energy from Russia because they might be cut off, and they got to get coal from somewhere now, and they're importing coal from South Africa. So ESG goes out the window because there's a maxim that people will acquire energy at any price, because energy is order. Energy brings order to our society. That's all it is. Energy is the opposite of entropy. Like we've ordered something, whether it be, you know, coal or nuclear fission or wind or solar, whatever. We've created order there, reduced entropy, and then directed that somewhere. So yeah, I mean, for a civilization to thrive, we need to consume more energy. So the ESG narrative kind of goes against that, because what it requires is that we use a energy source that requires more ordering. So we're using something like wind and solar, which, you know, you have to remove more entropy basically than coal or oil, for example, hydrocarbons or nuclear. And then you've got to move that around. And in order for our society to thrive, for civilization to thrive, you have to consume more and more energy. That's essentially using machines to do work for yourself. So this ESG narrative is A, relying on inefficient energy sources, and then B, trying to reduce the energy consumption of every human being, which is fundamentally anti-civilization. Society is only going backwards if you do that. So ESG to me seems like the laws of thermodynamics and the kind of trend of humanity is going against it. So ESG is probably going to be a flash in the pan and then probably not last too long, because people are going to figure out that, hey man, we need to consume energy.
I hope so. I hope so. But like,
life gets worse.
Yeah, like this is like exactly what I believe, and a lot of Bitcoiners believe. But I am a little bit afraid, because like this narrative is like so, like it was driven so long, and it's like so deep embedded into people. And I mean, yes, they kind of need to wake up, and I hope now with what's happening. I mean, I'm coming from a European country, and they basically fucked their energy sovereignty within 1 year. You know, they, as you say, they are like reliable on Russia. They can't condemn their actions, whatever. And this just shows, like, again, Bitcoiners kind of foresaw it, right? They were talking about this like for years already. But still, I'm a little bit, I don't know. I'm a little bit more cautious on this, because I think it's going to take longer than we might hope, because it's just embedded so deep in like, because basically you can't bring this topic up in like a normie conversation, right? Because everybody thinks you're crazy. You can't talk, like, I haven't met one normie where it was just like, yeah, what are your thoughts about ESG? Like, basically 99% of the normies fall for, or like think in that way. So yeah, I hope that there will be a transition and we'll get out of it, but I don't know. I hope you're right, but I don't think so.
Well, it's not like I don't share your views on this. Like I am. It does make me nervous too, because I totally agree with you. Like the narrative is so embedded in people. But the one hope that I do have is that institutional or collapse in institutional authority is like happening at a massive rate right now. Like red pills are raining from the sky, and no one is taking blue pills anymore. You know, like no one is. More people aren't being converted to believe in institutions. So like, let's take the COVID vaccines as an example. Like prior to COVID, the amount of people who are skeptical of vaccines was like single digits, maybe like 2-3% of people in the world. Now the amount of people that are skeptical about COVID vaccines is like 30%. And then of that, there's more of that group. There's people who are now more skeptical of all other vaccines as well, because of this because of being lied to by institutions, and people can see clearly that, okay, this is clearly not what we were sold. And then you take that a step further. That trust in institutions, people now start to question everything. It's not just vaccines, because the same people who are telling them, get the COVID vaccine is safe and effective, or telling them they're pushing the ESG narrative and the climate change narrative, etc. And people are going to start to question. And for example, them saying in Germany, reliance on solar and renewables is the best way forward. And now when winter arrives in Germany this year, and energy prices are like 5x what they were 5 years ago, and there just simply is energy rationing, there isn't enough power to go around, people are sitting at home cold in winter, that's when you start to see institutional questioning happening, and when you look at countries that have loads of hydrocarbons, that are consuming those, and they manage to live high standard of living, it's going to be very difficult to keep the masses kind of subjugated in an environment where you're like, you guys are all living off solar and wind, but these guys, a few countries over, are living on hydrocarbons and nuclear, and look at the quality of life they've got. There's going to be mass discontent in the masses, let's just hope everyone's not on a CBDC by then and they can just turn you off.
Yes. Yeah. I hope you're right. I think I like slowly but surely I see more of my friends, or like my normal friends, thinking about this. You're totally right. And yeah, I think that the problem is like they really need to feel the issues, they really need to, for example, here in South Africa, I've never experienced the power outages. If this would happen in Germany, I'm sure that from one day to the others, people would question the energy politics that's happening right now. So yeah, it might also happen way faster than we think, because as soon as you don't have power for half a day or something, because and the weekend here something blew up. It was told, at least to me. So yeah, you start thinking about the things differently, and you might be right, because as you see, the thinking of the masses can be influenced very fast as well. So we'll see.
Yeah. And just on this ESG thing, it's such pure grift, because all you're doing, like, you can't deny the rules of thermodynamics. Like, energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one shape form to another. So if you are offsetting your carbon footprint somewhere, you have to go and buy carbon credits elsewhere to offset that, right? So all you're doing is you're shipping the carbon footprint to another country. So places like Europe and the US that have now just outsourced the manufacturing to China and India, that carbon footprint is just happening there. Like, their manufacturing is happening there. And then you somehow get a better ESG score. It's pure bullshit.
Also the costs. Yeah. Also the costs for like renewable energy is kind of not represented like in the right way, because first of all, what do you do with like all of the production of those? But also, if you don't have wind or solar, basically your energy costs jump to infinity, right? Because if you don't have any solar, you don't have energy. Therefore, your energy price is infinity, like this, and you gotta, as you say, import it somewhere, or you're just fucked. So yeah, I don't know. There's so many thought irregularities in there, and like it seemed, it's just a lot of virtue signaling that got very, very deep and is now in the highest level of like politics and even companies. And I mean, it's kind of scary also to see the first oil producer and energy companies to also start virtue signaling. And I don't know which one it was, like some major oil company renamed themselves like for something renewable. I don't remember, but like these would be the companies where like, okay, these are the facts. We need energy to thrive as human beings. But also these companies start falling for the ESG narratives, and it's kind of scary times. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely is. Did you ever watch that Joe Rogan interview with a North Korean girl, Yeonmi Park, I think is her name? She's a North Korean.
I know her, but I didn't watch the whole interview. Yeah.
So the one thing she said, she's like, the way that North Korea maintains its control of the population is they keep them energy poor. They essentially, through starvation, they keep them There's no like electricity there. They're living in the dark with candles, but they don't even have energy in the sense of food to eat. So they have no ability to fight back. And she's like, that's the most like potent way that the most potent tool the government has to keep them under the heel of the government is just keep them energy poor. And I look at this ESG narrative, and I look at what's happening in the world, and it seems to me that the elites hate us so much that they effectively want us to be their slaves in some sense. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And the best way to get you there is to keep your energy poor. Because if you're energy rich, it's very hard to oppress you. And if you have decentralized energy, it's even harder. So they want centralized energy systems that they can regulate and limit the amount of kilowatts that you actually get, because the less energy they can give you, the poorer you're going to be, and the less you're going to be able to fight back. And that goes all the way from like energy to like burn lights and run a fridge to like energy to put in your body, like calories. So they and the higher you centralize the level of control of energy, the more dangerous it gets. Like if you have energy policy being set at the EU level as opposed to an individual country in the EU level, then you're setting yourself up for failure. Imagine if all of Europe had to follow Germany's plan with energy. The whole of Europe would not be stuffed.
Yes,
because they wouldn't have any power. They'd all be running off solar and they'd be screwed. So thankfully that doesn't happen. So hopefully what we see is this pushback against the centralization trend, because institutions are failing and they've been so wrong for so long. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, and people are seeing like the real world implications of like detachment from reality for so long. But it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, I'm wondering how peak centralization will look like. If maybe we are already here. I mean, what's happening in today's world is kind of crazy. If you see what just happened with like deplatforming a whole nation just because, whole nations from like Swift systems or whatever they wanted to do. And I'm wondering if we can go more centralization, because it seems things are falling apart in a rapid way right now. So I'm thinking how much further we can centralize, or if we are already past the inflection point and this is just like, okay, the last steps of it. But it feels for me that like during the last 6 months something definitely changed, like within the whole world, kind of, because things are like, in my viewpoint, are falling faster and faster apart. Like, just look at the energy prices, right? All of the countries who suppressed like diesel and all of the petrol, kind of now inflation is hitting. I was talking to all of my friends like 3 to 4 years ago. Hey guys, okay, inflation is gonna happen. Like when the COVID printing hit, and all of this is kind of like happening right now, and it's kind of weird living through these times, because it's scary. It's also interesting because Bitcoiners have been warned about it, and Bitcoiners are warning about other things now as well, where like if this happens, it's gonna be a quite scary transition into hyper Bitcoinization. But
man, one of the largest centralizing factors that really worries me is communications. Like WhatsApp, for example. True. WhatsApp went from like a period of being like not everyone was on it, and like people like started adopting it. Then it went to like this honeymoon phase before Facebook bought it, of like, okay, everyone is using it now. It's this free messaging app. It's got a nice network effect. It works really well. To like now where it's owned by Meta. It's like part of the Facebook cluster. And essentially like it's the biggest messaging platform on earth. But I mean, they tell us it's encrypted. Is it? I have no idea. There's no way you can inspect the code. It's not open source. Yeah. And that's a big security hole, and it's a censorship hole. If they could turn people off WhatsApp, for example. Sure, you can get onto another messaging app, but like the network effect isn't there. Like Signal doesn't have the footprint that WhatsApp does, nowhere near.
Yep.
Telegram neither, and all of them come with their own issues. But communications is a big one, and then also the ISPs. So we know that countries can turn off the internet. All they have to do is approach the ISPs where the internet cables make landfall from the sea in South Africa. There's only like, I think we've got 4 cables that come in, 3 or 4 that come in So it's not very difficult to turn off the internet. And then what happens when you've got an internet blackout? Like we saw what happened in Kazakhstan a couple of months back. Communications become constrained. So the decentralization aspect of communications is a very interesting one. We need to start using mesh networks. We need to start using open source software, and ideally, send messaging over the Lightning Network, where you pay per message, because that's like a truly censorship-resistant mode of communication. So I'm bullish on some of those apps, but getting the network effect is a hard one. Signal,
slowly
for example,
but surely.
like yeah, very true. But Signal, for example, we all use Signal in our group here, and you've got to put in your cell phone number still. So, it's not anonymous, that's for sure. And it can probably be censored in a certain way, because they can turn off your phone number, disconnect you at a like Vodacom or Cell-C, or whoever your carrier is. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's interesting. But the stuff being built on the Lightning Network makes me super bullish. I don't know if have you checked out Juggernaut at all?
No, I didn't. I mean, I tested all of the podcasting 2.0 stuff and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But no, but I think it's a chatting app, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Juggernaut's a chat app on Lightning. It's only on desktop at the moment. They haven't got a mobile version yet. Okay. But that looks pretty cool. But then the podcasting 2.0 stuff. So Breeze is really cool. That works pretty well. But Sphinx, man, Sphinx needs a lot of work.
Yeah, I have my tribe there as well, but it's it crashes and it's not reliable. You really see we are at the starting innings of all of this. But yeah, as I say, this is the cool thing about Bitcoiners. Like I feel like we are like a separate group in the world right now, trying to build parallel structures which could function in like all of these black swan scenarios that like we have an internet blackout and all of that stuff. And I hope that we are fast enough and we can build it up from the ground everywhere. But yeah, I'm bullish on all of these Bitcoiners, because there will be solutions to every problem we are facing, and I feel like if there are people who can solve it in a sound way, it's gonna be Bitcoiners. So yeah, I'm bullish on everything that's happening on Lightning, and different structures also like in real life meetups and all of that. It's super important in today's time to kind of get connected to the other plebs.
Yeah, man, the real life meetups are a big one, hey? So we've hosted 2 in the last couple of months, and just that energy of people meeting each other in real life. So like there's a few guys that I've known for like 2 years now that I only met for the first time in person. I'm like, how weird is it? I feel like I know you, but I've never met you in person before,
Yes.
But that energy is very important. And to like have that in South Africa, where we're trying to get going now, is meetups in all the major cities, like independently get them started up and to get them running. And I mean, we'll seed them, but then get them to run by themselves is vital, because you got to develop your local community. Because then if you've got your local Bitcoin community and shit, it's the fan, at least there's some people you can speak to, at least understand like what's happening. Because Bitcoiners tend to know what's going on, because they're looking at the world through a different lens. And to other people, they speak to Bitcoiners and like eventually they're going to be like, how have you been right about all this stuff? How have you known about all of this stuff? That that's going to happen, and that's where I think really where it's going to take off big time, because sooner or later it's going to become self-evident to normies that things are fucked, and something's got to change.
Yes, it really is astonishing, because like, as I said, 2 years ago I talked with people about things and they would just say, okay, you're crazy. Like even talking about like, I don't know, inflation numbers, which are like at 2 to 3% or something. I was and they were like, no, never. Our central banks can control it, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, no, guys, it's already out of control. We just don't see it yet. And it's just astonishing, because like all of them now understand what we've been telling them for like 2 years. And also regarding inflation, right? The numbers aren't the right numbers either. So I feel like we gotta stay humble as Bitcoiners, because some things we also interpret or see falsely, in my opinion. But I think we are closer to the truth than any culture or counterculture in today's world. So that's why I love connecting with Bitcoiners and just evaluating their views on the world, because it's just
Yeah.
something different. You don't have it anywhere else.
Tell me, in Germany, where does the inflation go to hide? Is it mainly in the real estate market? Like
Yes.
because it doesn't really go to the stock
Yeah.
market, right? The DAX is
No.
not particularly
No.
volatile.
Yeah, the German culture isn't like, people don't really save, like they just have money on the banks, let's say. It like, investing is still seen as a bad thing in Germany. So there is like a very low percentage of people like investing in stocks. I mean, now with Robinhood and all of those apps, the millennials started investing more and more. But before all of this, like, it was either you owned real estate or you just had your money on the bank. That's basically the German money culture.
But so property prices in Germany have like skyrocketed in the last 15 years, right? That's where all the
Yeah,
inflation
yeah.
has gone. So like
Yes,
now
yes,
it's
yes.
unaffordable for young people to buy a property because the prices are so high.
Yeah, even like renting got high as well. Like, let's say for young people, no one talks about owning property. No one. This is like out of their reach. This, you would like start to, in today's world, I guess, like with 30 thinking about something like that. But yeah, even rent, like in Berlin, there were a lot of people like signing a petition to cap the rents because they just skyrocket as well, and like a lot of young people can't afford their rents anymore. I mean, yeah, it's a big problem in Germany. I mean, if you invested in real estate, you got quite rich during the last 15 years. But yeah, the prices are like nowhere near where they should be, and in my opinion, it's a big bubble, and all of the real estate gonna get demonetized soon. But yeah, this is like the Bitcoiner view I have.
Yeah, man, it's so in South Africa, we're in a unique situation where like Cape Town real estate went through, well, the whole country's real estate went through a massive boom at the end of apartheid, because our property markets got open to the rest of the world and GDP started growing and people were doing well. So real estate prices went phenomenal growth, like over the last 20 years, maybe like, sure, 10, 15 times, like a huge amount of growth. So like a small house in, let's say 2000 might have cost you like 200,000 Rand. And now that same house will be like 2 million Rand, like, so that's like 10x on a small house in like 20 odd years. But now the rest of the country, that bubble has slowed down. So Johannesburg, Durban, most of the rest of the country, except for Cape Town, that growth has slowed down, even like started to drop, because now everyone who's got money, a lot of people have left the country, and then those who haven't, a lot of them are moving down to Cape Town. So that's like boosting the real estate price in Cape Town. But you're ending up with the same situation where young people can't really afford to buy property in the city. They have to move further out. So you end up with this weird scenario where those who have access to credit, who traditionally are already in real estate, can use that credit to lever up and buy more property, and those who aren't on the ladder just get left behind. So you end up creating like a much bigger discrepancy between rich and poor. And this goes against what the central planners always talk about. They always talk about Gini coefficients, and they like want to reduce, the inequality. But their policies directly create inequality, because that's what the Cantillon effect does. Who would have thought that the elites, the opposite of what they say, always happens every single time, right? Like, surprise.
Surprise. Here we are again. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's astonishing. I mean, I don't like, I didn't follow it in Germany how it was like 20 years ago, but just like based on the stories I know, like the last 20 to 30 years were a massive boom. And as I said, like, if you talk with somebody about owning real estate or something, it's just out of reach. And also like credit, the credit, you can't get credit as young person basically in Germany. It's super hard. You can get it like,
really?
Yeah, it's at least, yeah, it's super
so the
hard.
bank the bank won't give you a loan, and you have to get a loan to buy property because you don't have the money. You don't have that money, so you just can't ever get onto the property ladder.
Yep. It's kind of it's fucked up. It's fucked
Yeah.
up, the system. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm glad I'm out of there, and I have digital property, which
Yeah.
is way more
You know,
efficient and way better.
and that's the thing that people often discount about like the developing world, is that if you want to go and be an entrepreneur and you take risk, you can go to the developing world. Like you can go to Rwanda tomorrow, and like, or you can even go to Zimbabwe, like if you're entrepreneurial, you can go and hustle in those countries because like regulation is low, things aren't enforced that much. Like you don't have as much order and safety and security, obviously, but it's a trade-off. You have more freedom, so you can go and make something for yourself in an environment like that. Whereas like places like, I suppose Germany is like a great example of this, where like the markets are so ordered and the structures are so rigid that like you can't break through. Like even now, it's like you can't get credit as a young person. Like how are you ever going to move upward? Like how are you going to have upward mobility if you aren't born into it? If you're not born into a class, it's essentially the aristocracy is being developed once again through the Cantillionaires. And this is what money printing leads to.
Yes, that's the problem of the fiat system, right? You need the credit to level up or lever up, and once you're in, you need a money printer, everything is fine. But as you say, a lot of people will never get there, also because they don't really understand this game. They just think, okay, I'm poor, I'm never gonna get rich, or like, at least let's not say get rich, but own a property or something, just because they don't understand how the fiat system works. And that's basically the cheat code of all the quintillionaires and the millionaires and billionaires, just to get all of the fiat denominated debt, buy hard assets, and they're gonna get increase in value, and therefore you can get more and more credit. And that's basically the Ponzi everywhere in this world, besides the Bitcoin space.
Use that asset, that property you've got, to like leverage it, get another loan against it, and then just go and buy more and more. And I spoke to Stack Mohadel, who's Turkish, and he was telling me about what's happening in Turkey. And Turkey has the world's most amount of real estate development companies registered in the world. There's like 400,000 of them in Istanbul alone. And because this is the Ponzi that they run in Turkey, they run this real estate Ponzi where, for example, a politically connected person will buy a piece of land using the collateral he already has, which is other land, or he'll raise a loan against that. So then he'll go and buy a piece of land. Then through his political connections, he'll go through a back door to the building regulator and get them to sign off on him building an apartment that's, let's say, 20 stories in an area that's zoned to only be 10 stories high. But because he's got political connections, he can get an extra 10 stories because it's so corrupt. And then his return, his ROI on that square meter footprint is like 3 times higher than the 10-story place, because he can build so many more properties, and his input costs aren't that much higher. So they then just keep levering up and playing this game. So like now it incentivizes everyone to be politically connected and to be scamming the real estate system. So they're ending up with like a massive property bubble in Turkey. And this is basically where Erdogan derives all his power from, because he's like connected to all of these like real estate oligarchs. They're all like connected to him. So Turkey is going to have like a massive implosion of its property sector at some point, because you can't just keep building if there's no real demand. Like essentially what you're seeing is fake demand, because it's the fiat system creating this. But man, it's anyway, we're diving into the fiat world a lot. But like, to get back into the Bitcoin world, you obviously work in the Bitcoin world and are sort of semi-living on a Bitcoin standard now. But you're not a shady dev. You're not like a coder, as Elizabeth Warren puts it. How would you tell someone to start working in the Bitcoin industry if they're not actually a dev themselves?
It's quite a funny story, because I was exactly at that point. I didn't know what to do. I just knew I wanted to work in the Bitcoin space. And basically what worked for me was just like, okay, looking what can I do in the fiat world and try to adopt it in the Bitcoin world. So basically that's the cheat code. You just do whatever you can do, and if you find a way to show it to Bitcoiners, which is basically Bitcoin Twitter, you can do anything you want and earn Bitcoin for it. For example, there's like people selling baklava for Bitcoin. You can do art. I'm doing editing of audios and videos editor, because you gotta imagine what's happening right now is like we are building a parallel structure to like the fiat world, and we basically need any job we also have in the fiat world. So if you earned your living in the fiat world on any field, just try to find a way to combine the Bitcoin ethos with it, because every Bitcoin company, every other Bitcoiner trusts Bitcoin, another pleb, more than any fiat company, whatever their credentials are, right? So if you say I'm a real Bitcoiner, I'm a pleb, and I can offer these services for you, I would say that every Bitcoiner would take you like you rather than the fiat company. So therefore, I think maybe not a lot of plebs know this, but I think it's rather easy to transition from the fiat world into the Bitcoin world. Of course, there are some fields, some jobs which are more in demand right now than others. For example, as you say, devs, because obviously everything is happening in the digital realm. But since this platform or like this culture is global, I would say that everybody can find a job. I mean, just imagine if memers got a job, you gotta find a way to do a job. If they're like, you see, there's a whole new job which like the chief meme officers, which is just like making fun pictures. So if you have something, I think you just can start like step by step transitioning, because it wasn't for me that I dove into the Bitcoin space like this. So I was like next to the fiat world. I was starting working for Bitcoiners and like gradually scaling it up. Then at some point I was like, okay, now is the point where I can say I don't need the fiat world anymore. And for me, then special things are happening, because if you can devote your life like for full time on Bitcoin work, first of all, you're like way more fulfilled, because this is basically the hobby of all of us, right? So you're gonna have fun every day, and also you're gonna meet more and more Bitcoiners who are, as I said before, if you provide the right value, more and more Bitcoiners gonna try to help you out, gonna try to connect you with other people. It's just like, we are all in the same boat. We are sick of the fiat world. So I feel like everybody's just working together. There's like a healthy competition to, as I said, in a free market, to also get you better in what you're doing. But besides that, everybody's super helpful. If you need anything, you can just reach out to some pleb. And so, yeah, I think just find your niche would be my point. Do something different, because a lot of people are maybe trying to copy some other people who were successful with it. And I think this is a thing where it might take longer to be successful, but just find your own niche and copy what you do in the fiat world and the Bitcoin world, and give it 2 years and you're going to be on a full Bitcoin standard. So, yeah.
And, the most important thing about this is that it puts us on a circular Bitcoin economy. Because if you're billing in Bitcoin, being paid in Bitcoin, like that's what this is about. You're then becoming a merchant. You're accepting Bitcoin for your services. And when you're living in Bitcoin and you're earning 100% of your income in Bitcoin, you've got to convert to fiat to spend in the fiat world. But like that's essentially the same as getting your salary, saving in Bitcoin first, and then living on the rest of your salary. So like you're saving first. So you might as well earn in Bitcoin and then convert to fiat what you need. So put yourself on that Bitcoin standard. Get in the start building out the circular economy. It starts with you, and then it's much easier when you go and speak to other people, and they say, yeah, but like how can you live in Bitcoin? You're like, well, I live in Bitcoin. It can be done. It's not that hard. I mean, I personally don't live on a full Bitcoin standard, not yet anyway. I'm still, because I get paid in fiat, but like that's the plan, is to work towards that. And I know a guy here in Cape Town who's been living on a Bitcoin standard for 4 years. So it can be done, just a little bit of effort. And it just every year it gets easier and easier, because more people accept Bitcoin.
more people accept Bitcoin, you get comfortable with price swings. And yeah, for me, for example, it's also way more efficient to live on a Bitcoin standard, because now I'm kind of traveling the world, and basically it's just a hassle to have have it in my fiat bank accounts, because I have like international like clients I'm working for, and I first of all, it takes so super long until your fiat money arrives, and second of all, you have to pay fees for it. And so yeah, I'm happy for everybody who pays me with Bitcoin, because this is it's just way more efficient than dealing with the traditional banks. They are done. So yeah.
Yeah. And then you just meet up with local Bitcoiners when you want to do a P2P trade, like you came to South Africa, you hit me up, you're like, hey, I'm coming to South Africa. And then I put you in contact with our local Bitcoin group. And now if you ever need to sell any Bitcoin for rands, like there's guys there who will do the trade for you immediately. And I suppose that's the same in any country you go, because there's Bitcoiners literally in every country on earth. And it's such a tight community. If you just reach out to some local Bitcoiners, like they'll bend over backwards to help you, because the community is tight.
Yeah, the community is tight. You know that every Bitcoiner, if you're a Bitcoiner, you have the same value. So it's kind of like, it's like religious people, kind of, because religious people, if they move from one country to another, they just go to the church, let's say, and they meet like-minded people who can help them out with like the same problems and stuff. Basically, the Bitcoiners, it's the same. You have the same values. You just meet up with them, and you get everything you need. So yeah, totally agree with you.
That's exactly what we were saying before the power cut us off last time, is that Bitcoin is essentially on its way to becoming, or has already become, a religion. And it's got its congregation, it's got its shared values, it's got the whole deal, And it won't be long before some normie academics start writing about this, but I think it's self-evident to many Bitcoiners already that it kind of has got its. And I mean, there's the extremists, there's the like self-flagellating guys who are on the extreme, and that's probably the very toxic maximalists. There's the apostates. The Roger Ver has been kicked out for, there's the Judas. We got the whole thing,
we got everything.
But it definitely is becoming religion, and I think that's a good thing, because religion. I'm an atheist personally myself, but I grew up in a very religious community, and was religious until I was like 18, 19 or whatever. But I think religion is innate in all human beings. And that's not compared with organized religion, but I think religion has been an organizing trait in civilization, in society, from a tribal group all the way up. And then organized religion obviously capitalizes on that and tries to rent seek out of that, like it's built on top of humans' innate ability or a desire to believe in something bigger than themselves. And atheists don't escape this. I think atheists have replaced God with wokeism to a large extent. And I see this new woke God and ESG to another extent replacing the God-shaped hole left in many atheist lives. And this is why, like, I personally have shied away from the atheist community in the last few years, because I'm like, you guys are worse than like fundamentalist Christians, become more unbearable. But it's humans are innately religious, and Bitcoiners are no different.
It's kind of astonishing. Like a lot of Bitcoiners I'm talking to, like they are they are getting back into religion and maybe connecting more with their initial religion past because of Bitcoin. Because as you say, religion is kind of the representation of nature's laws, like reprehensible for human beings. And I would say, or I would argue, that Bitcoin is also very, very much connected to nature in its being and its structure. And I feel like both of them have the same effect on people. Like if you see how people react to discovering Bitcoin, right? They're getting healthier. They are like learning way more about themselves than in like any period of their lives. And like this is basically what people say who found God, right? They are talking exactly like Bitcoiners, like, oh, this changed my life, and please also do it. Just believe me, you're gonna feel amazing. Because it's you have this journey with Bitcoin which truly changes you. And I would argue this is happening with a lot of religions as well. People like religions are fundamentally reprogramming people, as Bitcoin does. You lower your time preference, you eat healthier, you go to the gym, you start lifting, and yeah, your values just get aligned to the nature back again. So yeah, I think Bitcoin is a religion, and at least it has a lot of common, how do you say, threads, not threads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Commonalities with all, but my concern is like organized religion. I would argue Catholicism, organized Islam, any organized religion really becomes like a man-made control structure rather than maintaining that like innate spark that led people to like organize their religion to start with. I don't know if I make my point too clear, but like when people first started Christianity, they didn't believe that like this would lead to like child abuse. That was like the last thing they ever thought that would happen, but yet it did happen because of the organized structure. And like there's these like incentive structures to protect people within the organization, and you've got all this other fucked up shit that happens out of it. I wonder how Bitcoin defends against that. Can it? Is it possible to defend against it becoming like this like monolith that then gets used for like ulterior motives? Or is it because of the nature of the time chain that we always have an anchor in truth and it can't get that far away from truth because of that? I'm not sure. I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so as well. I've never thought about this, to be honest. I hope that like the the change that you have your money and you're responsible for it, and like sparks some self-sovereignty in yourself, which hopefully lasts for generations. But as I say, I could imagine that after like a couple of Bitcoin generations, like this urge kind of, or this value kind of isn't as important anymore, right? Because you don't know how it seems normal, and therefore you stop being that toxic about it, and that's exactly where such changes happen. So yeah, I could see such a future as well. I think there's like an interesting part about it. I don't know if you heard about, probably you heard about it, but like these building generational wealth funds. So basically you just like every generation gets, I don't know, 1 million sats or something, and like all of the other wealth is just stored away for the future, which basically takes away, or would be a possibility to kind of work against it, to just say, okay, this is my inheritance, or that's what I want to inherit, but I'm gonna do it for 200 years. You can do it with certain protocols. So yeah, I think it's a good point you're bringing up, but I'm not gonna live back through this. But yeah, it's a good point. I never heard about it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've only recently kind of thought about, but I haven't fleshed out completely yet. But it's like, because Christianity in the early years, the first 300 years, was a very decentralized thing. Like the Pope didn't exist; they didn't have the papacy, and this like everything centralized in the Vatican. And obviously, that being centralized, Islam being centralized in Mecca, Judaism being centralized in Jerusalem, like these centralization of your organized religions is where it all goes wrong, right? Like in the early days of Christianity in Europe, how it actually spread was the monasteries were like your hub of scientific development. And what they would do is they would do selective breeding programs on crops, the monks. So they would like breed your wheat and your wheat and peas and things, etc., to have higher yields every year. So they were like the scientists in their community. So farmers would give them tribute and pay them to effectively like do scientific R&D for them. So next year you can have a better yielding crop. And over the next series of 10, 20 years, your society has been improved dramatically because you're more productive and you have a higher output of food crops, because these monks are living in your area and they have a monastery there where they're doing all this research. And going from that being like a very, very, very useful function in society. And you can see how it was adopted and how Christianity then grew throughout the pagan areas of Europe, primarily through Germany and France, because it was so super useful to have them there. how it went from that to like a bunch of kiddie fiddlers hanging out in the Vatican, I don't know, but like must have been through centralization, because that centralization aspect obfuscates any way that you can have real accountability. So I think the decentralized nature of Bitcoin, and that it naturally wants to decentralize, will help us avoid that. But if we have regulations and laws and things that are allowed to, or somehow manage to get a control over Bitcoin, that's the way it will inevitably go, and will be corrupted. But then it's no longer Bitcoin anymore, right? Like if it gets centralized like that.
Yeah, the thing is, maybe there's a new centralization in 100 years yet, right? Maybe we can't even like know what, like, because some people argue that Bitcoin is like our leap to like a new form of humanity, right? With discovering energy money. So maybe there's like a new way of centralization that's gonna derode or derange what we are trying to achieve in like centuries,
Well, like maybe nuclear power, right? Because nuclear power is quite centralizing in itself. Like if the world abandons this ESG nonsense and they're like, cool, let's go all in on nuclear, great, that's a abundant power supply, but you will have miners centralizing around those nuclear power plants, because there's going to be excess energy available for mining. And then it's much easier for the authorities to go around to every power plant and be like, register your miners and impose it that way. So I think the South African model of like people mining Bitcoin, or South African model of putting solar on your home and going off grid with solar at that really micro scale, and then home miners is really the answer to this, because it's much harder to regulate, 1 billion home miners than it is to regulate 5,000 nuclear power plants. It's trivial. I mean, how many? There's not even. I don't know how many, but there's less than 500 nuclear power plants in the world. Probably it's like not a big deal. And even if we scaled up to 5,000, it's very easy to regulate. So I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. Let's let's work towards decentralization of power grids and basically everything in this world. So let's start prepping for this. But
backyard nuclear power plants are the answer.
Yes, let's go. Let's build them.
All right. Gleb, I think we're going to leave it there. Tell me, if anyone wants to follow your work, where can they track you down on social media?
Basically, I'm everywhere, Pleb Music. If you made it this far into the podcast, I would urge you to follow me on YouTube, because I am working on a new, pretty big project, which is gonna drop soon. I don't know when yet, but that's basically where the fireworks gonna happen soon. So on Twitter, Pleb Music, on YouTube, Pleb Music, basically everywhere. Just Pleb Music. Okay, that's me. Yep.
And then what's your plan once you finish? You're in South Africa now for a couple of months. What's your next plan after this? Where are you going after SA?
That's gonna be announced in the project. I'm still here for a couple of months. So if anybody wants to meet up, I'm happy to meet all of the plebs. But it's not set in stone what's gonna happen. But still, it still needs to be announced. So we'll see.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. And we're definitely going to have a Brian a beer soon. And
let's go.
We'll see you then.
Cool.
Let's go.
See you then. Thanks for
all right, bro. See you then. Thanks.